恭请大德圣听，为此法会及一切众生，请转妙法轮教导我们如何了生脱死，离苦得乐，速证无生。Will the Sangha with great virtue, out of compassion, for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to leave suffering and attain bliss, and end birth and death, and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Namo sadanto suchetoye alahati sanmiao sanbuddho che. 无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，念解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in a billion eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Namo, quelling disasters, lengthening life, Medicine Master Buddha. 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 Medicine Master does come one. 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 Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Realm Master, and all good knowing advisors. Amitabha, welcome back. This is lecture number 202, 202. Today, we also have stories. A lot of, not a lot, one very long story, okay, about the Buddha and a tiger. Okay, and maybe we have time for a second story. Okay, so where are we? We are continuing to look at the 10 titles of the Buddha. And this is important for mindfulness, the practice of recollecting or being mindful of the Buddha. And today we are looking at the title of being enlightened. All right. Last week we looked at the Buddha known as the teacher of gods and men. Today we'll look at the term enlightened. Then in the Visuddhimagga says the Buddha is enlightened with the knowledge that belongs to the fruit of liberation, since everything that can be known has been discovered by him. Okay, what makes the nirvana of the Buddha different from everyone else, say like arhats or bodhisattvas? Arhats who have ended birth and death, they enjoy the same state of nirvana as the Buddha. But when it comes to knowing the the world, like what happens in one Buddha land or other Buddha lands, they don't know. And a bodhisattva, when um, uh, the path of the bodhisattva consists of the bodhisattva gaining wisdom to match to eventually to match that of the Buddha, and at the same time learning a lot of skillful means to teach living beings. What skillful means? Well, some beings you have to get close to them based on what they like. You have to learn skillful speech to know how to talk to them. So, and every living being is different. So you have to learn the ins and outs of how to get through to sentient beings. Okay, but then the Buddha, being the Buddha, there is nothing that escapes the Buddha. He knows. Arhats can find out certain things, but they have to meditate in order to find out, whereas the Buddha doesn't need to. Yeah, he doesn't. And when he needs to know something, it's not like the way we use memory or logic or inference and the way our mind works. The Buddha's wisdom doesn't work that way. The Buddha just knows. The Buddha, it is said that if there's rain, the Buddha also knows how many drops of rain. Can you imagine that? Okay. So alternatively, okay, why is he known as the Enlightened One, the Buddha? The Buddha has discovered the four truths by himself and awakened others to them, and thus for other such reasons he is enlightened. So this is more from a Theravada point of view. Okay, and then if we take a look at the Mahaya Prashna Paramita Shastra from a Mahayana perspective, says he's also called Fortor or the Buddha. I say, what dharmas does he know? He knows all dharmas, past, present, future, and present, animate and inanimate, permanent and impermanent. That means conditioned and unconditioned phenomena. He knew them all completely. Or when the Buddha gained enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, all this became the Buddha's knowledge. Yeah, and then it says the Buddha, while he was still the Bodhisattva, offered his body, his head, his eyes, his marrow, and his brain to his enemies who had come to kill him. And so now that he has become the Buddha, he will even less spare his life. That is why only the Buddha can bear the name Buddha, because he has done what other beings cannot do, such as, well, when they say the Buddha has offered his body, his head, his eyes, his marrow, his brain, it's not metaphorical, it's literal. For example, there's like the one offering of his body, and that's the story you're going to look at. Okay, the Buddha offering his body. There is a stupa on the spot where it is said that the Buddha offered his body in a past life. How do we know? Well, historical records. There's a monk, Fa Hian, and also Venerable Xuanzang, who have visited the spot before, and it's recorded down in their pilgrimage, which is still, the records are still exist to today. And then the stupa, the gift of the head, where the Buddha gave his head away, was also visited by both the monks Fa Hian and the monk Xuanzang, which is the legend of the West. Monkey God, that story. That's how did that legend come about? Well, the monk in that story is Venerable Xuanzang, and the monkey God was one of his Dharma protectors. Okay, so are you ready to go to enter this story? And speaking about Mahayana, okay, towards the end, once we have understood what it means to recollect the Buddha, okay, I will present the Mahayana perspective. And well, I can't promise, can't guarantee, but I'm quite sure it will blow your minds away. Because right now, what we are doing is we are understanding recollection of the Buddha in from a very conditioned perspective. It is still the conditioned perspective. But then when we move to the Mahayana perspective, yeah, when the time comes, maybe let me see, maybe in a few weeks' time or 2 weeks' time. Okay, anyway, okay, this is from the Golden Light Sutra, among a few other sutras. I think it's also in the Jataka tales of the Buddha in a past life, how he actually offered his body, and he didn't want to offer it to a human being. He offered it to a tigress. Okay, so this is how the story goes, or the past life goes. So in the Golden Light Sutra, this is chapter 18. There are at least two English versions. I think this was shared to us by Gary. The English is a bit clunky. I found the other version, the English also a bit clunky, so we'll just stick to this. Okay, so the Buddha was explaining to a goddess in this is chapter 18 of the sutra. So it's a very long sutra. And in chapter 18, the Buddha is telling the goddess that bodhisattvas give away even their body and life to help others. That's how selfless they are. And says, how is that so? How can someone do something like that? Okay, so on YouTube and on TV, when they do something stupid, they always have something physically stupid. They always have what do you call it? A disclaimer, right? Is it called a disclaimer? They say, do not attempt this at home. Stunts are performed by professionals only, right? Okay, so the disclaimer for this is that what we are about to find out is something that only extraordinary people can achieve, like bodhisattvas. Okay, they are meant to inspire most of us. Okay, and depending on where we are on the path, sometimes we take them based on the principle. We take them metaphorically. That means, say here right now, the story is about the Buddha literally giving up his body. For us, we can interpret that to mean as being selfless in donating our time, donating our effort. When we work for when we volunteer, even though we are tired, we push ourselves physically to help others. You interpret in whatever way seems to make more sense for you. I'm sure, hopefully, there might be a bodhisattva out there listening to this, and they say, "Yep, in one of my past lives, I did that too. I remember I gave away my body, or I gave away my eyes or my heart." And then later today, I had a visit from Dr. Ho and Leevan. There are people who do that as well. They literally give up their bodies. So we'll come to that. Okay, so the Buddha, all right, setting up the story. He was walking with 1,000 bhikshus, and then he came to this place. All right, and this place was lush with dark green, soft grass. That means very nice to sit on. And there were a lot of fragrant wildflowers growing around. So not only nice to look to look at, but nice to smell as well. All right. And then the Buddha said, he told Ananda, remember Ananda, he said, this is such a beautiful place, and it bears the mark. It has the mark of there's an opportunity to teach the Dharma here. So prepare a seat for me. Okay, so the Buddha didn't choose this place because it was nice. That wasn't why the Buddha chose this place, and we shall see why this exact spot was chosen. Okay, so this being a Mahayana Sutra, you see the language. After Ananda lays down the seat, he doesn't miss an opportunity to praise the Buddha. He says, "Chief and supreme among bipeds." Bipeds are people who walk on two legs, not just people. I think any animal, bipeds, right? Any animal any being that walks on two legs, that's biped. Yeah. And it says, you free beings from bondage, you bestow supreme benefit upon humans, be seated and may the nectar or sublime discourse for the benefit of humans kindly be given. Did they really speak like that during the Buddha's time? I don't know. I maybe Ananda was being very respectful, but I don't know. Yeah, the language seems a bit unnatural. That's why I say it's a bit clunky. Anyway, so the Buddha sat down, and then the first thing the Buddha did was he asked the monks a question. And I'm sure, okay, I'm sure if you were there, your eyes would, I don't know, I just imagining myself, the Buddha, if the Buddha were to ask a question and say, would you like to see the remains of a Pusat, okay, who perform things that normal people couldn't do, a very difficult deed. And I'm sure if I was there, my eyes would open up and my body would straighten out. I'll just nod my head. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah. But then again, and then you have the way the monks replied to the Buddha. Say, oh, the time is right for us to see the remains of one, the best of supreme beings, etc., etc. You can read that for yourself. Yeah. So what did the Buddha do? In this translation, the Buddha struck the surface of the earth, the ground, with his hand. In another translation, the Buddha used his foot, he stomped, he said the Buddha stomped on the ground. And what happened? The earth shook in six ways. That means there was an earthquake. And not only that, out from the ground came a stupa made of silver, gold, and jewels. And then the Buddha said, Ananda, open this stupa. Yeah, and when Ananda opened the stupa, he saw the Sharira that was inside. Yeah. Oh, wait. No. I'm getting ahead of myself. Yeah. So when he opened the stupa, he saw an urn covered with gold and decorated with jewels and pearls. Use your imagination. Okay. And then he said there's an urn, and there's not just one urn, but 7 urns. And the Buddha tells him to open the 7 urns. Okay. Now, I know there's not many people with us today because many people are not at home. They are with family. It's almost Chinese New Year. Let me ask those of you who are online, do you all know when in the text they say the quaking of the earth in 6 ways? What does that mean? Does anyone know? I want to guess. Anyone? What does that mean? There are 2 meanings. One is a literal sense. Okay, the earth actually quakes in 6 ways. Yeah. I thought I had my notes with me, but I don't. So I can't tell you what the 6 ways are. It's like trembling, quaking, and yeah. But there's another meaning behind the 6 ways the earth shakes or trembles. Anyone? Yes, Levan.
Is it the 6 realms, Faster?
When you say 6 realms, what do you mean?
It affects the realm of, like, when it will shake the human realm, the animal realm, hells. Is it? I'm just guessing.
Okay, all right. The reason why I asked realms is because the 6 is right, okay, but the realms is incorrect. Or maybe you might be correct. I don't know if it can be interpreted that way. But what I do know is from the commentaries is that the 6 represents the 6 sense organs. So there are 2 ways to understand that. Okay, one is the stages of the 10 abodes, the 10 practices, the 10 dedications, the 10 grounds, the ground of equivalent awakening and of wondrous awakening. So that makes up 6, and you find that in the Avatamsaka Sutra. So what do they signify? Breaking through ignorance. Shifu says if we want to advance through these 6 stages, we need to break through ignorance 6 times. So it's not just a one-time deal. And then every time we break through, our ignorance diminishes. And he says everyone will experience them whether you practice dhyana or not. That means there's also the literal ground quaking. And then Shufu says they are the quaking of the six sense faculties, the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. Yeah. Okay. And then if you look at, you can find this in the Shurangama Sutra, and you can also find this in Shufu's commentary on the Lotus Sutra. Alec, you're going to say something?
Yes, I was going to ask, is it breakthrough the ignorance or affliction?
Ignorance.
Ignorance. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
ignorance. Yeah. Okay, let me see. What are the six kinds of quaking? Hold on now. Let me see. Okay. Quaking, roaring, cracking, shaking, erupting, and heaving. These are the six kinds of quakes. And it says the first three, quaking, roaring, and cracking, refer to sound. And then shaking, erupting, and heaving refers to movement. Yeah. And then Shiva says these six kinds of earthquakes represent the six sense faculties, the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. And then you can break it up into the 18 realms, which is the six sense faculties, the six sense objects corresponding to the faculty, and then the each of the consciousnesses that arises when the two have contact. Yeah. So if you read the Shufu's commentary on the Lotus Sutra, there's I think 3 or 4 pages or more that Shufu talks about this. Yeah. Okay. All right. Now, let me go on. Okay. So Ananda opened up the urns, 7 urns that he found in that from the stupa that came up from the ground. And what he saw were relics. I'm not sure it was just bones, but I think it would be more sharira. And they were white. It says snow and white lily. Yeah. And that means pure. And then Ananda said to the Buddha, their relics, and then he gave them to the Buddha. And then the Buddha, there's a lot of verses in this sutra. Then the Buddha said that the Sharira came from someone who was endowed with excellent virtue and supreme intellect, humility, meditation, with delight through patience and sublime fame. The person always strove for wisdom, of enlightenment. He was intelligent and he possessed steadfast, joyous perseverance. That means as he was putting effort in his practice, he was never sulky or felt like it was a chore. He actually felt happy, and he always delighted in giving. Okay, this reminds me of the time when I went to CDTV, and on very, very special occasions that happens maybe 2 or 3 times a year, there's a hall called I think it's the Nowards Hall, and we open it up to the public in the morning. Why? Because we have Sharira there for people to pay respect to. So when I was there, I didn't know, first time, I didn't know what was in the hall. So what happens is, say after bowing to the Buddhas, while chanting, either reciting the Buddha's name or chanting a mantra, we walk. The monks will lead the procession. We will walk in single line to the Nowards Hall, which is maybe takes about 5 minutes to get there. We go up a small hill from the Buddha. Usually, if it's a big celebration, we have a tent outside the Buddha Hall, and we walk from there. So anyway, walking there, my first time, I'm not sure, I didn't know what's going on. So I just following the line. I knew it was Sharira. And then there, you enter a room, and then this room isn't very big. I think it can accommodate, if standing, maybe 80 people. So it's not a very large room. On the sides of the room are glass cabinets at waist level. And in there are all of Shufu's old stuff, things that Shufu used to use, like his shoes, his sash, some of his writings, his personal possessions that are displayed in a glass cabinet. So you walk up, and then in front of you, facing you, are 3 stupas, and they're elevated. So you can't get too near them from the front. You have to walk from the left, because we always circumambulate with the Buddha images or the stupas on the right hand side on our right. So we walk to the left of the three stupas, and then behind is a raised platform that gives you a better look. So I went to the first one. I was looking at the relics, and then I went to the second one. I say, hey, these relics are different. They look different. So I looked down. Then it occurred to me, hey, why don't you look down and figure out what you're looking at? So I looked down and I realized that each stupa held a different, sort of, I can't remember the order. Okay, one stupa held Shufu's relics. Okay, and then the second stupa held Elder Master Shien's relics, and the third one held the Buddha's relics. Yeah, and the Buddha's relics were like grains of rice in terms of size, but fatter, rounder, and it was as if they were made of pure glass. They were transparent and clear. I think Elder Master Hsien was either white or also looked the same as the Buddha. And then Shufu's relics were more the conventional kind of like jade embedded in the bone kind of thing, if you know what I mean. Anyway, I was blown away. I wasn't expecting the Buddha's Sharira to be there. And there were so many. There were trays, I think 7 trays, one on top of another. And each tray were, I wouldn't say filled, but there were a lot. Yeah, a lot of the Buddha's Sharira there. Yeah, I was absolutely blown away because I wasn't expecting that at all. So if you go to see our 10,000 Buddhas, try to go during, I think, Vesak Day, or one of the Shufu's anniversaries, where they open up the hall for people to view. You go at the wrong time, yeah, you don't get to see it at all. Okay, so what did the Buddha do when he saw the relics? He told the monks, he said, you should pay respect to the relics because they are fully charged with ethics and virtue. And if you've ever had the luck of holding a relic of the Buddha up close, you will find that they radiate energy. Or one of the eminent monks, if you ever have the opportunity, go try it out. Yeah. And so then Venerable Ananda asked the Buddha must have paid respects to the relics as well, because the Venerable Ananda asked, he said, how is it that the Tathagata venerates these remains? He said, like, oh, what's going on? Why is the Buddha himself, the foremost, the Buddha, why are you also paying homage to the relics? Another time when the Buddha paid homage to relics, or not relics, to bones. The Buddha was walking by the roadside with the monks, and then he saw some dark-colored bones on the ground, and he bowed to the bones. And then the monks asked, why are you bowing to the bones? And the Buddha says, the bones of a man are white. The bones of a woman who has given birth are black. Why? Because in nurturing the child, a lot of the mother's nutrients of the body goes out in nurturing the child, so the bones will turn dark in color. So the Buddha bowed to the bones of her mother. Yeah, these 2 incidents I can remember. Anyway, coming back, the Buddha says, it is because of these relics that I quickly awoke to peerless and supreme enlightenment. That means this was the Buddha's relics in a past life. So I started explaining, story time, okay, not just for y'all, but for the monks as well. But of course, for the monks, it was a lot more awesome being there, seeing, first of all, experiencing the earthquake, and then seeing this wonderful stupa arise from the ground. Yeah, that's why the Buddha chose that particular spot. So the Buddha said, well, a long, long time ago, once upon a time, they say there was a king known as Maharata. and he had great power, possessed chariots, that means had a lot of vehicles, and he had 3 sons, Mahapranada, Mahadeva, and Mahasattva. Okay, so one day the king went to a park, and the princess were with the king, and they started running around exploring the forest. So I think it was a safe place, so the attendants were dismissed. They said, okay, you attendants don't need to be around, don't so you can leave us on our own. So the 3 princes went into a part of the forest, and one of the brothers said, oh, he's overwhelmed by fear. Maybe because there were no one protecting them, and they were in the thick of the forest. Yeah, and so he says his heart is he's afraid that they might get killed by wild beasts. So he tells his 2 brothers, stay close. And the second brother says, well, I'm not afraid, but I'm anxious that I might be separated from my loved ones. I mean, I might get lost. Then the third brother, Mahasarva, said, here in the forest solitude acclaimed by seers, I am not anxious nor have I fear. This heart of mine is greatly overjoyed in hope of finding opportunity for vast and great benefit. So from here you can tell this third brother Mahasarva is kind of weird. He's not exactly normal, because he's looking to help, to be of benefit instead. So they were walking around, and then what did they come across? They came across a tigress who had given birth the previous week. And so she had her cubs around her. I think it's supposed to have like 3 cubs or something. No, 5. Yeah. How do I know 5? Later we'll find out. Okay. Although it's not said here, but when the Buddha reveals who and who in this story, we find out there's 5 cubs. So, but she was very weak. And one of the brothers said that, it will be 6 or 7 days since. So this is why I say this translation is a bit clunky. In this translation, the word wretch is given to the tigress, but in the other translation is a much kinder term. Yeah. I think wild beast or something, I can't remember. Anyway, because wretch seems to be very derogatory, which is not the case. Anyway, the brother said, well, she doesn't have any food, so she'll either die or she'll have to eat her own cubs to stay alive. So the third brother, Mahasattva, which is the Buddha in his past life, he said, what does the tigress eat? So they said, well, they eat fresh meat and warm blood. Yeah, these are what carnivores, like hunters, like tigers, bears, hyenas, and lions, that's what they eat. So I'll go a bit quicker. I want to make sure I have enough time to finish this long story. So one of the brothers, Mahadeva, said, she says, it's quite obvious she's going to die soon. She has very little life. She's very weak, cannot look for food. She can't even protect the cubs from these 3 brothers. So he said, is there anyone willing to sacrifice their life to save hers? And then the second brother said, to give up one's body, it's a daunting task, it's not easy to do it. And then the weird brother says, for people like us, they're feeble-minded and greatly attached to the body, such an act is difficult indeed. It says, however, great beings embark on giving their bodies completely and dauntlessly strive for others' welfare. Then he broke out into a verse. It says, born of affectionate love and compassion. It says, Arya beings who consider their bodies as just obtained in heaven or on this earth, their joyous minds most agreeable to saying others' lives, remaining steadfast, would have 100-fold compassion in this case. All right, Arya meaning noble beings, born of affectionate love, loving kindness, and compassion. So feeling very sad, the young prince looked at the tigress for a length of time without blinking, then went on his way. So in other words, what he witnessed really touch the core of his heart. That's what, without blinking, I think that's what he's trying to say. Then he had this thought. He said, oh, maybe this is the opportunity for me to give my body away. Why? Why did he think that? Well, he says, he looks at the body and he knows it's impermanent. And not only that, Shofu says our stinking skin bag. We are back. We are but a bag of skin and bones. So he says, I have long guarded this putrid body subject to death and decay, providing it with food and drink, clothing, vehicles, and luxurious beds. But then it is still doomed to crumble and end in woe. And the body has no purpose save to abandon its unknown nature. So imagine this. Imagine if you have a car, all right, but it's a broken down car. It's one day this car is going to be a death trap. It's going to be the death of you, because one day as you're driving, barreling down the highway, you want to brake, it may not brake. You want to turn right, you go straight instead. You want to accelerate, it might brake, or no, you want to brake, you might accelerate instead. It will turn into a death trap. Okay, and so that's how the Buddha sees it. And then he has this further thought. He says, since it is wholly impure, it will not endure. He says, now I should use it for a noble end. Thus it shall be for me like a boat crossing the ocean of death and rebirth. So think about it. His thinking is like this. If I give up this car of mine, this car that I know is going to break down on me, going to require repairs, going to cost me money, going to make me upset. And so if I give it up now, all right, in the future, I can obtain a very special car. So let's say you give up a lousy car for, say, like a Rolls Royce, okay, something that is very special, very solid, something that will not decay in the future. That's how he sees it. And if we look at it from that perspective, it's like, yeah, why wouldn't anyone want to do that, right? Who in their right minds would not do that? And so that's the logic of not logic, but wisdom. That's the wisdom of bodhisattvas. But what stops us from doing those things which normal people feel are stupid is because we get attached. We can't see or we can't understand cause and effect. You say, this is the only car I have. This is my prized possession. This is everything I have. Everything I have. I mean, this car defines who I am. It represents me. How can I give it up? People get attached. And because of their attachment, they can't see things as they really are. Okay. So, but the Bodhisattva sees it differently. It says, I should attain the Dhammacaya's timeless state, free of the afflicted aggregate, sorrowless and endowed with samadhi, replete with hundreds of stainless virtues. So you give up something shoddy, something impermanent, something impure for something that will become, how you say, I'm lost at words. What I just read, okay, timeless state, free of the afflicted aggregates, okay, for something timeless, yeah. So his heart filled with compassion and resolve. He asked his brothers to leave him, and then he went to where the tigress was, and he prayed. He said, to benefit transmigrating beings, that means beings on the wheel of birth and death. He said, may I attain the peace of peerless enlightenment. My mind compassionate and steadfast, I give this body which others find hard to give up. Why? Because he wants to achieve the flawless, priceless enlightenment that bodhisattvas so keenly seek. And I shall feel free beings. So he's not doing it just only for himself. So they can free beings in the triple worlds from the intense fear of the ocean of existence. Then see, in the next slide, he lay in front of the tiger, but the tiger was so weak, they couldn't do anything. So what he did, he went to find a weapon. He couldn't find one, so he took a stick of bamboo, a bamboo stick, 100 years old, very old. And then he used it to cut his own throat, and he fell before the tigress. And so he says, when the Bodhisattva fell down, the earth shook in 6 ways, like a boat pounded by winds among the sea. And then the sun did not shine its rays, and flowers mingled with divine perfumes, and powders fell. So, okay, if we look at what the Buddha is doing, first of all, we already know, okay, the Buddha does this with a heart of renunciation. He's putting down the worldly things. And one of the most amazing things you can do is to put down the body, to not let the body dictate how you live, all right? But instead use the body to achieve the supreme goal. So that's what he did. So there's renunciation there. We already know his heart was filled with loving kindness and compassion. He didn't want the tigers to die, or worse still, to eat the cubs so that she could live. Why? Because a tigress is a wild animal. So when you have these three, renunciation, loving kindness, and compassion, it's right intention. And when you have right intention, you generate merit. And the merit that you get from such an act is tremendous. And not only that, okay, we sometimes fail to see the, how to put it, by doing this, the Buddha prevented tremendous suffering for the tiger and the cubs. Why? Okay, if the tigers had eaten the cubs, what would happen? The cubs would feel betrayed. The very person that was meant to love and protect them and to bring them up betrays them. So they will come back as karmic creditors to seek revenge, either as spirits or as when they meet again as living beings. The mother would have to pay the debt back to each of the cubs that she would consume. And when that happens, the mother who had forgotten what had happened would feel resentment at being treated that way, and the circle will start again, and it will never end. So by saving the tigress, the Bodhisattva also prevented a whole, if you know movies that talk about all the different dimensions, and if you do something, you say you travel back in time, you do something and you have an alternate timeline or alternate world, the Buddha prevented all of that worlds and upon worlds of suffering from happening. Okay, and we shall see how important that was later. Okay, now when this happened, a goddess was there, was overwhelmed with astonishment, and she praised the Bodhisattva. Okay, and then okay, so let's move on. So, feeling the earthquake, okay, the elder brother said to the second brother, says the way the earth with its seas greatly shook as far as the oceans in all 10 directions, etc., etc. It says, my mind is troubled. My brother has now given his body. So they kind of know. They know what happened. Why? Because his brother, the third brother, was acting weird. You know, and they said, oh, I have a bad feeling. You know, I think our brother has sacrificed himself. And true enough, when they went back to look for him, all they saw, they says they saw his clothes hanging on bamboo shoots and only his bones scattered around his hair, and they fainted. They couldn't take it. They fainted, and they were overwhelmed with grief. And then so they went to look for their parents, the king and the queen, and then so the servants say, what happened? And then at that moment, okay, the mother, the queen, was sleeping and she had a dream. What was a dream? Her 2 breasts were cut off and her teeth were branched out. And then she found 3 young frightened does, and one of them was snatched by a hawk. And then terrified by the earthquake, the wind woke up. And she said, why she calls the earth the sustainer of beings clothed in ocean. She said, why is there an earthquake? And so it was a bad omen. And she wondered, oh, are my sons well? And then she found out that no, your son, I think the youngest one has passed away. And then the king also found out, and they started to. So the king said, "No, mind." I said, "I'll go and look for the prince just to make sure." And but he found his two sons, and they confirmed what happened. So they started to grieve. Apparently the king said, the joy of gaining a son for a man does not equal the pain of losing a son for another. Say, are those men not happy who have no sons in the world, or those who have met death with their children still living? I told you the language is clunky. And so these are just like, okay, now this is like a drama playing out. Okay, they describe how the queen is so overwhelmed by grief. The two princes explaining to the parents what they saw, what they discovered, and and then apparently the king and the queen also fainted. Yeah, when they heard it. So more of the same of their agony. Here also more of the descriptions of their agony. I remember once when I was about 19 years old, one of my father's good friend, the son, they live in a village, and then the son was riding a motorcycle, and then there was a lorry who came. It was a narrow road. So the son riding a motorcycle went to the side of the road, and I think he hit a pothole, and he fell. And as he fell, his head hit the road, and he died. And when I went to the funeral, I heard the father crying, and he was saying, he would willingly give up everything he has to get the son back. Yeah, so that's how the king and the queen were feeling. Yeah. Okay. So moving on. So now the Buddha he reveals to Ananda, he said, if you think the young prince called Mahasava at the time, at that moment was another, he said, don't. He said, it was me. I was the young prince. And he says, even before I was wholly free of ignorance, hatred, and desire, he was saving beings from the suffering of the hells. What does that mean? I'm not sure. Maybe it has to do with the tigress and the 5 cups. And it says, now that I'm free from all weakness and arrive at enlightenment's perfection, he said, how much more would I wish to free all beings? Okay, so that gives you an idea of who the Buddha is. All right. If the Buddha had spent countless lifetimes doing things like this, all right, giving up. They say you know what they say? You can't find a spot on earth where the Buddha has never given up his life to save another being before. All right. So Buddha is saying, if he was like that before he became the Buddha, what more now as the Buddha? Right? Have any of you thought of the Buddha that way before? So even now as the Buddha, he's even more willing to save living beings. So he says, in this way, for the sake of just one being, I have happily remained in the hell realms for eons. How do you wrap your head around that? Well, if you have a loved one who is suffering, are you able to abandon the loved one? Okay, start there. All right, start there. So the Buddha says he has freed beings completely from the cycle of birth. That means become noble ones themselves. And then he says, while seeking supreme enlightenment, he has given his body for many eons, just as he became a king or prince, so he completely gave his body. So there are other stories as well, like when he was a snake, for example, numerous times he was born as a snake. And the patients he endured, he exhibited in not harming other beings. So now we come to the one interesting part. He says, he, the Buddha, was formerly the Prince Mahasattva, son of the king. Okay, now Suddhodana, which is Shakyamuni Buddha's actual father, all right, was the king. He was the king now during the Buddha's time, but he was also his father in that particular past life. And his mother was also his mother now, Queen Maya. And then Mahapranada, guess who he became? Maitreya Bodhisattva, who is going to be the next Buddha. And then the other brother became Manjushri Bodhisattva. Yeah. And then the tigress was who? Mahaprajapati. You all know who that is? Anyone? Come on. I'm sure at least half of you know. Yes, Sri Ling?
The stepmother, the mother's the mother's sister who took care of him and brought him up.
His wife.
Okay. All right. Full marks, full points to Sri Ling. Unfortunately, Alec, this time you're wrong. Maha Prajapati is the Buddha's auntie, the one who raised the Buddha when Queen Maya passed away after childbirth. Yeah. Okay. And then the 5 cups were who? The 5 bhikshus. What are the 5 bhikshus? The first 5 who became the arhats, the first 5 of the Buddha's disciples. So can you imagine if the Buddha at that life, he didn't do that, then perhaps then the tigress would have been held back from her enlightenment. And so maybe the 5 cups as well, because, you know, when you are murdered or eaten for food, you want to take revenge, and that's not good for the path. Yeah. So then we conclude the sutra with let me see, again the king and queen was crying, and then okay, so this is how we have the stupa. They place the bones of their child in that place itself where they had stopped. The Buddha said this is a good place to give a Dharma talk. Now you know why. So they built the stupa of the 7 jewels. They placed the remains of their son in there. And then the Buddha said, when he gave the tigress his body, he made this wish. He said, by the merit of completely giving my body, may I in future times for eons utterly beyond thought, it means beyond infinity, perform the deeds of Buddhas for sentient beings. That's what his vow. And so he said, this is the reason and this is the cause for revealing the stupa here. Yeah, so it's awesome to be born during the Buddha's time. If you walk around with the Buddha does all these kind of things. Yeah, that so your life, people say your monk very boring. Well, during the Buddha's time, maybe not that boring. Yeah. Okay, we have run out of time, so no time to do the other story. The other story is what? The Buddha gave up his eyes. Yeah, he gave up his eyes. Not only gave up one eye, but he gave 2 eyes. He was tested. So someone asked him for 1 eye, but the Buddha was so joyful. He gave 2 eyes. Yeah. See, Bodhisattvas are not normal people. They are very weird. Yeah. Okay. Anyone? Any questions? Anything you want to share? Anything you want to bring up? Okay, so these stories are meant to inspire us. We are on different stages of the path. It doesn't mean you have to give up your body. When, how you say, you will know it's not force. Okay, you do it out of joy and happiness, not out of, there's no fear. Okay, and oh yeah, now I remember. Okay, so today Dr. Ho and Li Wen came to the temple to visit me, And so Dr. Ho was recounting how Tzu in Taiwan. So what Tzu does is they have this program where people give up their bodies of, as upon death, they willingly allow their bodies to be used as cadavers to train medical students. And but it's done in a very wonderful way. The students have Dr. Ho. Would you like to? Is it convenient? Do you want to explain how it's done? You or Levan, either one of you all? Yes, Dr. Ho.
Yes, yes, for sure. Yeah.
Mm.
Thank you for sharing this. Yeah, so y- yeah, so I was sharing with Pasha how the culture in Taiwan has changed, where in most traditional Chinese societies, including Malaysia and Singapore, I think most people would not be willing to donate their bodies to medical sciences, right? Upon their passing on to be dissected by students and doctors. Um, but Master Cheng Yan from Tzu actually encouraged her disciples to do so. Um, it's called the Silent Mentor Program. And really, it's the name itself says a lot because silent mentor, meaning that even after you, um, because devotees of Master Cheng Yan, they are encouraged to be always looking for ways to serve everyone else, right? And this should carry on even after you pass on in life. That means your final, like in this lifetime, your final gift, right? You give the gift of your body to train the next generation of doctors and um, medical students so that you offer your body so that let the medical students practice on your body, make the mistakes on your body so that when they have to operate on the real patient, they can get it right. And it's quite a special program because how it became so successful is um, as part of the program, the students who are going to dissect on their silent mentors, as part of the program, they have to visit the silent mentors' family so that the students understand who their silent mentors are, so that they don't just see the cadaver as a body, right, but as a human being who have passed on. Um, and then as part of the deal as well, the medical students who dissect on the body will have to stitch up the body at the end of the dissection, uh, bathe the body and dress the body for the final sending off. And the students are expected to attend the sending off as well. So actually, the whole program is very touching in many ways because it's not just a lesson in anatomy, but it's a lesson in humanity as well. You know, when the students learn to try to understand why their silent mentors are so generous, hopefully it would um, ignite their own sense of compassion and kindness in how they treat their patients. So I think all in all, it's a wonderful program because through this donation method, you allow the students to learn anatomy, but also to learn about humanity. And this program has been so successful, right, that there's now a waiting time. So if you were to donate to this program within, I think, something like 12 hours or so after the person has passed on, the family is supposed to donate bring the body, the person to a Tzu hospital where they will then prepare the person, I mean the body, and deep, literally deep freeze the body until it's time for the silent mentor to be dissected. And apparently the program has been so successful, right? That there's now a waiting time that even after the silent mentor donate their body, it may be like 3 years later before they get to be dissected on. So I mean this is also quite a lot for the family, right? Because for the family of the person who's passed on, that means they have to delay the final sending off ceremony for 3 years, but then it just shows that when the heart of the silent mentor is so great, the family member will also accept that they have to, delay the final standing off. So I think I was just sharing with Fashil, I thought that was a wonderful program, and how Taiwan, from a traditional Chinese society where they have a lot of difficulty getting cadavers from medical students, now has probably the most successful voluntary um, donor program in the world. Okay, that's my sharing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ho. Yeah. So can you imagine after they visit the family, and so when they are doing the dissecting of the body, it's not a body. It's a person who they have met, either the children or the parents or the wife or the husband. And if I was having someone perform surgery on me, I would want their training to be like that, because then when you dissect a body, naturally you'll be more careful, because there's it just changes. You're not just doing it to learn or to understand or for experience, but there's like how you gain merit through right intention, through loving kindness, compassion, and renunciation. When you are learning about the human body, behind it is respect, reverence, and understanding of the family and all that. Yeah, I think it will transform. I can imagine that having a transformative effect on the student. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? Does that bring up any stories anyone else would like to share? No? Okay. So, okay. Alan says the silent mentor program is practiced in UH. Oh, that's good. That's wonderful. Is it done in conjunction with Searchy or?
Yes, is with Shiji.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's good. That's really good to know. Is it successful?
Yes, very successful.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, it looks like it's a family affair, not just for me, but for Leven's family as well. Miss Lim, Madam Lim is Leven's mom. Yeah. Okay, good. All right. So let's transfer merit. Let me get my slides. Oh, okay, hold on. Let's do the regular one. Can't remember what we did last time, but let's do the regular one. Okay. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise.